Everyone. My name is Michael Diamond, and I am the Academic Director of the Integrated Marketing and Communications Department here at NYU School of Professional Studies in our Division of Programs in Business. And I am absolutely delighted to welcome Jonathan Adashek to our community today. Jonathan, as most of you know, is the Chief Communications Officer at IBM. Is a man who is known in the industry to be both very committed to the profession, but also to helping emerging young professionals, find their footing in the profession, and has played important roles both in industry and in government in communications positions. And so we're absolutely delighted that he and prior to this afternoon, a number of his colleagues have been able to join us and share with us a bit more of the perspective of the role of communications globally in a big company like IBM, and particularly around some important tech-related issues and social responsibility issues. So absolutely delighted to welcome Jonathan. Also is an opportunity for me again to thank Professor George Benaroya, who leads a section of our Finance for Marketing Decisions course in our Masters of Integrated Marketing. And he and his class every semester do an extraordinary job of really getting inside a company's financial structure and architecture, and looking at some of the big financial decisions that companies have to make in order to provide some context for marketers and communicators who need to speak the language of business as much as they do marketing or communications. So without too much further ado, I'll hand over to George. In case I forget towards the end, I do want to thank obviously all of our colleagues at IBM who've helped make this possible, and two colleagues at SBS, Robin Smith and Patrick Brady, who are behind the scenes but pulling the important levers to make sure this is all happening. So my best to you both. I'll come back for Q&A. If you have any questions, you'll see two little bubbles at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Those are speech bubbles, and you can pop your questions in there. I'll be moderating those and come back to them when we get to that section of the event. So back to George.
Super. Thanks very much, Michael. For those I don't know yet, welcome. I'm George Benaroya. During the day, I work as a CFO. I started my career at Procter & Gamble, then Tetra Pak, Media, and now private equity. Now, once per week, I get to do something I love. I teach this finance class. Let me explain what's happening. You've joined a real class going on now at NYU's School of Professional Studies. We're not actors. What you see is a real classroom with some real students. And is my slide already on? We don't see it here.
It hasn't come up yet, George, so we may just be your computer's being slow, but yep, hasn't come on yet.
Okay. Try it again. One of the things that we learned, of course, is what to do in these cases, right? When you have people and the slides don't come up.
And George, if you want to send any materials to me or Patrick, we can try and display whilst you're introducing. So.
Yeah. So let me try it again.
Jonathan, whilst George gets set up, you may probably give you a little bit of background, George, just to keep us on time here. One of the things that George does with his students is take them through a set of financial statements and financial reports, and then ask the teams to make decisions and choices that they might do if they were a senior business executive. And you know, I've always felt that that was a very empowering sort of position to put communicators in, and not a bad choice, you know, as a way to introduce the insides of a big company. George, do you want to just speak to this, or
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and you may have a slide so you can share the screen as we go along.
Yeah.
So basically, what we do on the first session is students pick a company, any company that they want, and they picked IBM. And then we learn about finance by having the students make a business recommendation once per week. The first recommendation that they make is about headcount. And Michael, just let me know once you have received the email so I know how to go along.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll check with Patrick. Keep going, sorry.
Alrighty. So in the case of headcount, if you were to make a recommendation to your boss at IBM, how would you go about it? What arguments would you use? And one of our students was recommending an increase and a different student a decrease. Now in this class, there are no right or wrong numbers. What we do is we learn how to use numbers in real life to persuade others to follow our recommendations. The second thing that we look at is the problem that we have today in the US with supply chain. What do you do if you don't have enough product to sell? Would you prioritize all clients or new clients? And our students make different recommendations. I've been teaching now for about 2 years, and before the pandemic, many students will prioritize new clients to get their business. Now, in the worst time during the pandemic, they all went for prioritizing all clients. Then we look into the concept of inflation and price increases, and how would we communicate that to clients. So one of our students, Yihan, she recommended a price increase for about $2 billion. And in some cases, it was a decrease, and in others was an increase. Then we look into the concept of how to, you go a few more slides, Michael. Thanks for that.
One more?
Yeah. So that's what they picked before and after the pandemic. And then on the next one, we see the price increase that Yihan recommended. And on the next one, how you communicate this increase to clients. This is what Kristen did, and it looks so real that I'm tempted to call on that phone number. On the next one, then we learn how to manage the rejection from clients if they don't agree to a price increase. And then on the next one, what you'll see is one task where we pretend that we are having dinner during Thanksgiving, and our students want to explain the profit and loss. So just picture this: someone is saying, pass a turkey, and then someone goes, no, wait, I want to explain the P&L. That wouldn't work real well. But Jonathan, or Mr. Radashek, is our fifth speaker. We had others before, and Rekia was inspired by Kaveri, one of the VPs at IBM, and so she took it to go and explain the profit and loss to her mom and dad. That's a photo that you see on that slide. Then on the next slide. So what we do through all these exercises is to have executives from these companies that the students have picked to share with us how they make these decisions in real life. And today we have with us Jonathan Alashek, the Chief Communications Officer at IBM. Now, I prefer to do the introductions a bit more informal, so you can probably stop sharing, Michael. I think what is really fascinating about Mr. Alashek is that before IBM, he was the head of communications at Renault-Nissan, which at the time was the biggest car company in the world. Before that, when he was at Microsoft here in the US, he led a concept of having the local stores, Miami, San Antonio, everywhere, listen to the local community. And they even changed assortment based on that. Prior to that, he worked at Edelman, at the White House, and Treasury, and our students will be asking him questions about it. So please join me to welcome Mr. Jonathan Alashek.
Thanks for having me. The only thing I'm going to ask is that you call me Jonathan, and we'll go from there.
Super. Thanks very much, Jonathan. So to explain a bit the process that we follow, in addition to having the students from NYU, we have now today students from other universities in Latin America and Europe who have sent questions. We also have some high school students who have been learning for about 5 months about why CSR is good for business, using IBM as an inspiration. They're not enrolled in NYU, but they have sent questions, and we will look at some of those. And I guess the concept that I want to convey is that this session is open to everyone. And with that idea, Patrick, will you show the first question, which is coming from one student in Latin America?
Hi, thank you so much, Mr. Adashek and NYU, for giving the chance to students all around the world to ask questions. My name is Ana Maria Inaz, and I reside in Barranquilla, Colombia. And my question is, what characteristics does a leader has to have in order to obtain innovation in your brand?
Let's start with a really easy question. Wow, you guys just throwing the hard ones from the get-go. Innovation in the brand, in my mind, comes from the people, right? And you can have the best plans in the world, but if you don't have the people, you're not going to get anything done. So let me just be crystal clear about that. And if I'm going to get the question later, I'll answer it now. What's the one thing that keeps me awake at night, or that I worry the most about? People. What's the one thing that I love the most about my job? People. And it's not just here, it's the other roles I've been fortunate to have. And I believe that you've got to have the right leadership and the right guidance to move to have everybody going in the same direction, to get to innovation, to feel like they can take a risk, they can try something new, that something might not work 100%, that you might fail altogether on something. You've got to have, the only way you're going to get to innovation, in my mind, is if you enable a culture that allows that to happen. I personally have tried to push that from day one since I walked in the door here. And, I had always really thought about that, but it sticks with me from back when I was at Nissan and I was getting ready to reorganize my function and put a whole new team in place. And not necessarily take all new people, but move people around and bring a bunch of new people in. And the head of HR for Nissan said to me, one thing you need to know, it is not going to be perfect. You are going to put the wrong person in the wrong job. It happens all the time. Not the end of the world. We address it, we figure it out, fix the problem, and move forward. And that is really solid advice that I got. And that's an approach I try and take across our business overall. We're going to put something out. It's not going to work right. Okay, what do we learn from it? How do we fix it? How do we change for the future? How do we fix the situation we've got right there at that moment? And how do we grow from it? And how does our business improve from it? Do I want us to be right and have no problems? Yes, I would love it to be 100% perfect every time. But I recognize the world is not full of kitties and rainbows, right? So I believe that if you've got that culture, you're going to enable more innovation to happen. You're going to enable better success from your business, and you're going to get to do things that maybe you didn't think was possible in the first place. Before I wrap on this one, I have something on my wall, a quote hanging on my wall, and I apologize as I look away to read it. It's from the rock climber Tommy Caldwell. Tommy Caldwell was the first person to free climb the Dawn Wall in El Capitan in Yosemite Park, right? So if you haven't seen it, there's a great movie called Free Solo, which I highly recommend, which is an amazing movie to check out about overcoming challenges and obstacles. And there's another one called The Dawn Wall. But Tommy's quote was, nobody thought it was possible, but I thought, even if it's not possible, I'll learn a lot. Maybe my goal will change in the end, but working towards something that's so improbable will be what shapes me. I'm addicted to the journey. Having a mindset like that allows you to deliver innovation, allows your teams to deliver innovation, allows you to move your business forward. Long-winded answer, but I hope that it answers the question.
I think that's a great answer. It's about people and leadership. So our second question is from Jenny, who is from New York, but is in Europe now. So she has recorded the question. Patrick, you go.
Hi, thank you very much, Mr. Adashik and NYU, for giving students everywhere the chance to ask a question. My name is Jenny Gelbman, and I currently live in Madrid, Spain. My question today is that research shows with increased digitalization, clients are more demanding, difficult to reach, less conformist, and less loyal. With this in mind, how do you recommend reaching out and communicating with clients in both B2C and B2B environments?
Hold on, I was on mute. I listened to Michael's advice to me to go on mute while I wasn't talking. Let me start by saying, I hope Jenny's enjoying Madrid. I'll be there next week, and I'm looking forward to my visit and meeting my team there and talking to people. I've got a bunch of meetings there, so one of my favorite places. I don't know that I agree with the question 100% though. I don't think it's harder to get to people. I think there are more channels to get to people. I think there are more vehicles to get to people. I think the more vehicles, arguably in my mind, makes it easier to get to people, but you have to know who you're going to and why. So we work very closely with Weber Shandwick as our PR agency, a great agency. And one of the things that I hear from Sarah Parker, who leads our business all the time, is audience, audience, audience. What is your audience? And how do you really get in to understand what your audience wants and where your audience is? So I'm going to give a general answer here, and that's B2B or B2C. I don't really care. You need to understand who your audience is and look at it from a perspective of, what do you want your audience to think? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to feel when they're done with you communicating to them? If you know who your audience is, you can then back into how you get to them, whether that's through the New York Times or the South China Morning Post or El País, or that's through another one of Sarah's favorites, Reddit or Substack or Substack Reddits. However you want to get there, right? You can get to your clients, your customers, and have a deeper engagement with them if you know who they are and spend the time understanding who they are and where they are. So that's what I would say.
Super, thanks very much, Jonathan. So let's go to our next question that is coming from Asia, so that you get an audience of hundreds of students who will get the recording. So Patrick, would you please send Janice?
Hi, I'm Sanjana Lakshmi, a 16-year-old student studying at School of the Arts, Singapore. My question for today is, how did working with the White House, with the Clinton administration, as well as the Treasury Department, help you build and create marketing strategies? Thank you so much for taking out the time to answer this question, as well as the NYU department for giving several students like myself the opportunity to ask such questions. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. It's an interesting one, and it's one that I get asked a version of that many times. Fundamentally, politics is all about communicating. That's all it is. Politics is, especially the roles that I had. Well, I wasn't the press secretary for John Kerry, or I wasn't in the press office for President Clinton. it was all about communicating our message. It was all about getting people to believe and understand what we were trying to do, using a set of channels, using a set of vehicles to get there. And it goes back to what I was just saying that Sarah pushes me all the time. Audience, audience, audience. So I'm going to skip the White House and Treasury for a minute and jump ahead to John Kerry's presidential campaign. When John Kerry ran for president, in the primary, I was in charge of the ballots and delegates for the campaign. And I was in charge of the floor of the convention. So what that ultimately meant, was to start with, I had to get him on the ballot in every state and territory in the US, so he could be elected, declared the nominee. There's 56 states and territories that are participating, even though there's only 50 states. There are places like Puerto Rico and Guam and other US Virgin Islands that get to send delegates to the convention. Each one of them has a different way of getting on the ballot. Once you get past that, there's the delegates. And if any of you, and I'm sure most of you, have seen a big US presidential nominating convention, picture of it or on TV or something of the sort, majority of those people in that hall are delegates in the Democratic Party. Number was like 4,000, 4,400, 4,500 delegates, something like that. I feel like it was 4,458, but I could be off. My job was ultimately to understand, who all of the delegates were, how I got them to vote the way I needed them to vote for the convention and for the campaign, and how I could get them out and get them activated. So to do that, I had a team of, I don't know, it was 12 or 15 delegate trackers, where I divided up the country and had them get deeper into managing the state of California or the Washington, Oregon, and Idaho delegations, because those were sort of smaller. So there was those people, and the job there was to say, I see the name, well, I'll just pick Michael. Michael was a delegate from New York, and I needed Michael to vote a certain way on an issue at the convention. I would work with my team to get the right message to Michael, but I would have information on Michael to understand not who pulled the strings, but who influenced Michael's thinking and his decisions. So that I might not just go straight to Michael. I might, in that database or in my work that I'm doing, I might track and say, Michael listens to George. I know they're very close. I know they've got kids in school together. They go on vacations together. I know they have the same birthday, whatever the crazy information that I've gathered is. And so I could say, I've got George who's already supporting the point that I'm trying to do. How do I get him to influence Michael? Understanding how you influence someone was the biggest takeaway I took out of politics, because that's all I'm trying to do in the job I'm sitting in today. Let's be clear. I tell stories to try and influence people's perceptions about our company to either be positive and do business with us. I try and take those who are negative and move them to a neutral, and I try and move neutrals to positives, but if I can't, I try and prevent them from becoming negative about our company. So taking those learnings from politics and from government and moving it into the communications space was hugely important for me. The other thing that really helped me in the role that I'm in today, I don't just have communications, I have CSR, I have citizenship and sustainability in my function. When I was in the White House, I was working on climate policy. So right now in Glasgow is the 26th Conference of the Parties. I was in Kyoto as part of the US delegation to the 4th Conference of the Parties, and in Buenos Aires the following year to the 5th Conference of the Parties. So this is an area that I'm very passionate about. I helped Walmart as they put their sustainability work together and put the public face on that sustainability work and really start engaging with people differently on the topic. So this is, I've been able to take those experiences that I had in the government working on environmental issues and sustainability and pull it through with me as well. So another long answer. You guys will find I ramble. Hopefully that answers it. Helpful.
It does. Super, thanks. Thanks very much. So the second block of questions is about why CSR is good for business. This is the only question that I'll ask, but as background, there are about 2 million shareholders at IBM. But in addition to that, IBM is a member of S&P 500. So most likely, when you go and you check your pension funds or any investment that tracks S&P 500, you will see that IBM is one of the biggest ones, right? It's bigger than Ford, General Motors, T-Mobile. It's bigger than 420 of the companies in the S&P 500. Now, my question, Jonathan, is for my students, if they go work in communications in real life at IBM, how can they make the world better and help IBM make money?
So George, I'm gonna take your question and do two different things with it. Let me talk about IBM and then let me talk about Walmart and the work I did there as well, because I think they're both applicable. At IBM, we're very focused on education from a CSR perspective. We're focused on education for a couple of different reasons. We're focused on education first and foremost, because education will help us have better communities that we're living in. Education will help, by having better communities, will help our clients have more vibrant businesses, and that vibrant business will hopefully help us have more vibrant business as well, right? So that is one key part. Another key reason that we're involved in this is because it helps us get better talent. There's a whole new set of talent that is developed, that is coming through the ranks right now, that we want to be interested in the work we're doing because we need great people. We need great people. We've got a great set of people here today, but we're always adding to that, complementing the skills that people bring to the team brings to the table today. We're always looking to see, how can we improve that? How can we improve it with our team that we have today? How can we improve it by bringing people in from outside? So it's both sides of the equation. And by looking at this, by our efforts in education, we're doing things like looking and going, how many of the jobs that we have today really require a college degree? I know maybe not the right thing to be saying to people who are sitting in a university right now, but how many of the jobs that we have, do they really require a college degree? Or could you get an entry-level job doing cybersecurity with online certifications? My daughter just had her birthday last night, and some family friends came over, and two of the kids, one is a senior in high school and about to graduate and doesn't know what he's going to do and not sure about college and not sure what he's going to do, in general with his life. And the other one, she just graduated last year and she's taking a gap year and she's trying to figure out what she's going to do. Nothing wrong with that at all. But as I spent more time with them and they said, well, I don't know if I want to go to college, maybe I'll go to a trade school, maybe I'll do a community college, maybe I will go to, they're both really smart and can get into the top tier schools. They've applied and they've actually gotten into some of the top tier schools, but they just don't know if they want to go do it and spend the money. I said, why aren't you looking online? Why aren't you figuring out what certifications you could get to get into a field like cyber, to get into a field like cloud computing, and really understand what that could do for you? I mean, if you really look at what we're doing as a company, we committed to skill 30 million people by 2030 as a company. 30 million people to make sure that they've got skills that can help them move into a new place in their career or enter a career to begin with. I mean, I've got this written down here. There's a recent World Economic Forum report, and digital disruption will bring rise to 97 million new roles by 2025 worldwide. But that's great to have the new roles, but if we don't have the skills to fill the roles, it goes back to my previous conversation about people, right? If you don't have people, you can't get anything done. So I think that's an example, of how IBM is using CSR and doing good things with our technology and with our people to make an impact of where we are, and at the same time having it benefit our business. Hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely. And look, Jonathan, when one of the other speakers mentioned that IBM provides all these trainings online for free to everyone, I mentioned that if it was up to me, I would start clapping when I heard that. I think it's terrific what IBM is doing, and education really enables many people to get ahead. That's why I do what I do. Our next question is from one speaker that we had last semester, Mr. Subashi. He's the former head of international at Campbell Soup, and he's in Australia. So will you play that video?
Greetings to everyone from down under. My name is Ümit Subashi. I'm a former global executive board member with Barsdorf and a former president of the international division with Campbell Soup Company. I want to thank George for giving me a chance to ask a question today, which is the following. We know that many companies initially started to get involved with ESG practices only to tick the box because it just looked nice from a PR perspective. And truth be told, there are still many of those around. But actually, over time, societal advancement and our collective understanding around ESG has shown that this is actually the right thing to do, even if typically the CFOs are not a fan of the money spent on ESG practices and believe that those funds can be used elsewhere more effectively. They just can't seem to see the return on investment on those. So how does IBM assess and quantify the business impact of ESG across various parameters, and which ones, especially from a financial standpoint? Is it an expense bucket, for example, a good one, or a growth driver, and how? Thank you.
So I think that what I would say is, I think I touched a bunch of this in my last answer about how we're using it and to drive benefit and to drive training and to see where we're also looking at where our CSR, our efforts are bringing in clients. We've got specific clients who I can't name right now, but I can because of confidentiality reasons, but major financial institutions across the world who are saying, part of the reason, and not a small part of the reason we selected IBM is because of the work you're doing in CSR, because of the P-TECH program that you've got and the schools that you've got in P-TECH, because of the work you're doing around skilling and what that means for you. So that has been a big push. But let me get to a more tangible, and I think it applies because of the Campbell Soup experience there. It applies to the situation. When I was at Walmart, I remember sitting at the desk with somebody, and he was the head of sustainability. And we said, okay, let's figure out, what if we took 5% out of the packaging of products that came into Walmart? What would that do? And we literally had some scrap paper. And a couple hours later, with lots of pieces of paper thrown around on the desk, the math was done, and the calculation was massive on what it would mean for Walmart, but for the larger consumer goods industry. Because let me be clear, Walmart at this point, I don't know if it's true, nobody was buying, let's just pick it, for example, Cheerios. Nobody was buying more Cheerios in the world anywhere than Walmart was. Nobody. And by Walmart saying, you know what? I want you to shrink your packaging by 5%. General Mills wasn't going to make Cheerios in boxes that were 5% smaller just for Walmart. They were going to do that same thing for Carrefour, and they were going to do the same thing for Target, and they were going to do the same thing for Albertsons and for every other grocer or drugstore or whatever store carrying Cheerios, right? That's good for the environment. It's also good for the environment because you want to know what? You can put more boxes on a truck, which means you have less trucks moving, which means there's less environmental impact from the trucks. But oh, by the way, that's good for the company because you're spending less money on fuel. You can put more pieces onto a shelf and change your shelf structure inside of a store because the box is smaller. That means you could put either more of those products, more boxes of Cheerios, which means less restocking, which means spending less money on labor for that job. Or you could say Cheerios doesn't need 17 running feet in the shelf. It only needs 8 running feet because it's reduced so much. I don't know what the figures are. I'm just making up numbers, right? Which then allows you to put another SKU, another offering of a product on the shelf. You look at things like that. We spent time when I was at Walmart looking at how do we move customers from incandescent light bulbs from 100-watt incandescent light bulbs to compact fluorescent light bulbs. We did the calculation. It was just for argument's sake. I don't remember what it is today, but we said, if we do this, we're going to save $3.40 over the life of the bulb that a customer will have in their pocket by not continually going in and buying incandescent light bulbs. What did we say? We said, that's fantastic for the customer. That's also an opportunity for us to try and get them to come back in the store and spend that $3.40. And maybe that $3.40 becomes $3.50 or $4, which is more money into Walmart. And you go, 60 cents. You get enough people doing 60 cents all the time, you start talking about some real money real fast. So I think those are 2 examples on both sides, a few examples that show how you can take CSR, drive it to the bottom line, tie it into the business, help advance your business, help advance the goal that you have for your shareholders and for your customers and your clients.
I think that's a good example of packaging, because in many cases the cost of packaging is greater than what we actually use in water or cosmetics, some cases even food and so on, right? And you're throwing it away. Now, our next question is also from Singapore, and it's again about how do we communicate all this to shareholders. Patrick?
Hi, my name is Julia. I'm 14 years old and I live in Singapore. I'd firstly like to thank Mr. Adashek for making the time to answer our questions. We all really appreciate it. And of course, NYU for not only making these opportunities possible but available to your students and students across the world. Thank you both. My question is, as CCO, when communicating with current or prospective shareholders, what do you think is most important and why? Thank you.
I think it's pretty simple one for me. Shareholders care about growth. Shareholders care about growth. They want to see the revenue go up. They want to see the profits go up. They want to see cash flow go. And all those things are going to drive to a better share price. So, there's a nuance if you're a value stock or you're a growth stock as to what the kind of messaging is, because what kind of shareholder you're going to bring in. Are you bringing in more enterprise shareholders, or are you bringing in more institutional or more retail shareholders? But to me, that's what they care about. I don't want to put my money into a company that's not going to grow or pay me a dividend. I want at least one of the two. When I've got all sorts of options, I would want at least one of those two to try and make some money. So very simple. That's the answer for me.
Super, thanks very much. So let's come back to New York, and Regina would like to go.
Hi, Johnson. My name is Regina, and I would like to ask, I noticed that IBM also trade in the stock markets of some places like Paris and London. And so what roles does communication play for an effective interaction with the long-term shareholders? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to note we've got a dedicated investor relation and stockholder team. We have a great seat at the table. We are great partners with all of them on the work that happens. We do a lot of integration in that work and working as we work closely with them. And we really help the company tell our story around our strategy. We help try and build belief around, with the media, with investors, with individual shareholders. And, a perfect example for that would be, what do we do around earnings on a quarterly basis? We're very, very active in that whole earnings process, developing the script for earnings, developing the questions and answers, helping to shape the stories that reporters and educate reporters on what they're writing and what they're talking about in their stories. Excuse me, last week, I think it was last week, it seems like a long time ago, we just completed the spin of Kyndryl. Kyndryl is our managed infrastructure services business. It was about a $20 billion piece of business that we spun off with about 90,000 people around the world. So it was a very well-funded, somebody referred to it as a very well-funded startup. But that was a huge project that I personally have been working on for well over a year. And the ability to educate reporters, educate influencers, educate our IBMers around what that spin meant. Between the day we had Investor Day on October 4th, and we had earnings on October 20th, and then the spin last week. Between the Investor Day on October 4th and earnings day on the 20th, I was on the road for almost 2 weeks straight. I was in Los Angeles, I was in Orange County, I was in San Francisco, I was in London, Paris, Frankfurt, Manchester, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. I was all over the place talking to reporters, talking to IBMers, talking to influencers, trying to frame what we were doing and why we were doing it so that they understood it. So when they wrote a note, when they wrote an article, when they talked to their colleagues inside or their family back home, they understood what we were trying to do, why we were trying to do it, and what benefit we expect to see from it. We play a key role in this and really driving these things forward. But it's a partnership.
Yeah, and look, all the students have read the entire CSR report and the annual report. They have listened to the earnings calls because it's so easy, right, to read the material that IBM prepares. So, it's working. Now, our last question is from Noko. She had a problem with her throat, but she tried 80 ways to record her question. So, Patrick.
Hello, thank you very much for giving the students an opportunity to ask you a question. My name is Noko Dambara, and I reside in Salamanca in Spain. And my question is about my master's thesis, why global companies fail or succeed in Japan. And I know that you have lived in Japan before, where IBM is quite successful. From your own personal experience, I was wondering, what do you think is the key for business success in Japan? Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. I love Japan. I love living in Japan. It was amazing. And, I went from Japan to Paris. and I lived in the suburbs of Tokyo and Yokohama. And lots of people would say to us, did you like living in Japan or Paris better? And the answer that my wife and I always give is we liked living in Paris. We loved living in Japan. So let me just preface that. I'm very biased towards Japan and all the great things there. To be successful, and I don't think that this is unique to Japan, but to be successful, you have to adapt to the ways of the market, right? It is easy for me to sit here in my quote unquote ivory tower in Armonk and say, this is what we will do. Go forth and, execute, team in Hong Kong, team in Sweden, team in Azerbaijan. Go do it. But those are the people who, in a normal non-COVID time, see the reporters, see our clients, see the influencers, see their families every day at the grocery store, at the movies, talk to them over coffee, talk to them over lunch. They know what is going to resonate there. So I think what is essential is to make sure you listen to the market and you allow markets to have flexibility to adjust their engagements and adjust their messaging to an extent while still staying true to what you're trying to do, adjust the positioning and execution so that it resonates where they are. One of the great things that I've got, and I feel very fortunate, there's two amazing women who are on my team who I get to work with every day. My chief of staff, her name's Sandra, who's from Belgium. And my Bia helps me with communications overall, and she's from Brazil. And the two of them regularly, and I'm not just saying this because they're on the call, but the two of them regularly will help me look at things and go, adjust this because you're looking at it from a US point of view, or this will not land well in South America, or this will work better with the team, or wow, that's every once in a while, very rarely, but every once in a while I get a comment from them like, wow, that's a great idea, that will work perfectly. Those are few and far between, so I relish those. But I think that having that ability to adjust to the market and understand the nuances is really important. If I want to take a document and translate it to Spanish, English to Spanish, usually it can get done pretty quickly. If I want to translate something to English to Japanese, that's a whole different ballgame because Japanese, the language is very different in the sense that there's the context of what you're trying to say and what you're trying to express that translators have to spend a lot of time getting. When I was in Japan, I'd get asked this, the translator would come see me all the time and be like, excuse me, what are you trying to say here? What are you trying to get across? So I make sure I use the right word or the right character to describe what you're trying to do here. So I think that is really important, to take time to understand the market, understand who you're trying to get to, and to get the input from others. That's going to be success. That's going to help you be successful, whether that's Japan or that's Brazil or that's Belgium or the US, because what works in New York is also, I'm from Milwaukee. What works in New York is very different than what works in Milwaukee. So you've got to make sure you're hitting it at the right level for your audience. Back to what Sarah said to me before, audience, audience, audience.
Yeah. Thanks very much. That's a great answer. So what we did this semester is I've been teaching more than one class, and this question is coming from a different session. So Patrick, would you play the question from Georgina?
Hello everyone. First, thank you so much, Ms. Adashek and New York University, for giving all the students a chance to ask their questions. I'm Georgina. I'm now taking another session from the Professor George Benaroya. I'm so glad that my question get picked up. Since I saw your post on your social media, I noticed that you are applying the strategies to increase the diversity for the whole IBM. So I was wondering how exactly the communication strategies could help with increasing the diversity from for the IBM's employees. Thank you so much.
Another great question. I think the key here, it's all about diversity. And it's all about diversity because our clients are diverse. Our business is diverse. Our employees are diverse. And at IBM, we have a very strong belief that everybody needs to feel comfortable bringing their whole self to work, whatever that entails. We want everybody to be very comfortable in bringing your whole self to work. It's not enough for us to look different but sound the same. We're really dedicated to promoting and advocating and celebrating plurality of thought. I mean, from my point of view, it's about diversity of race and religion and gender and ethnicity and all those things. And it's also about the diversity of lived experiences. All of those things coming together make the work that we do so much better. So much better. Because it helps us understand the communities we work in, the communities we live in. It helps us understand our clients. It helps us understand each other here at IBM that much better. Diversity and inclusion is a huge, huge push for us here. And I'm part of the executive leadership team here. And as part of the ELT, we spend a lot of time talking about diversity. It is a huge, huge push. And it has been since the early days, since we were founded by Thomas Watson Sr., right? He was a trailblazer in diversity. And it's been part of our core for the last 110 years.
Yeah, we see that on the numbers, right? So 30,000 folk from 75 countries were hired last year. So now you get to meet Rekia, the one who knows how to explain it P&L to parents. So Rekia, yeah.
Hi, Jonathan. I'm Rekia. Thank you again for joining our class. So my question is, 70% of IBM employees are outside of the US. For IBM's communications team, how much of the work relates to clients and external stakeholders compared to employees? Thank you.
I don't know the exact split. It's a great question. First of all, let me thank you for the question. I don't know the exact split. I've got, let's just ballpark it and say 500 people on my team today, right? I restructured the team not long ago to focus our efforts into 5 campaigns: hybrid cloud, AI, quantum and innovation, good tech, and business growth. 5 main campaigns where we're pushing our work. But that work works internally and externally. And let me be really clear. I have said to everybody, if our IBMers don't understand the principles of what we're trying to do, maybe they don't get the full, every last I dotted and T crossed. There's a lot of stuff I can't even dot the I's on and cross the T's on here at this place, right? But if our IBMers don't understand the principles of what we're trying to do, we're failing from the beginning. Before Kyndryl, we had 350, I don't even remember what we are. Today, we're over 250,000 IBMers around the world. We're a good sized company. That's 250,000 advocates that we've got for our business, as making sure that they, understand what we're trying to do, where we're trying to go, the messages and the stories we're trying to tell, the strategy of our company. They can advocate for us as they go out and talk to people, as they go out and they meet with potential clients, right? I'm going to a dinner tonight. I'm not a salesperson per se. I'm the comms guy. I'm the citizenship guy. I have a client briefing sitting on my desk right now because I understand our strategy, but I need to understand it as it relates to that client so that as I talk about what IBM does, I'm making sure I'm telling them in that point of view. So I know I'm sort of going off on a tangent here, but if you look at IBMers are a key audience for us. And I talked to you about the 5 campaigns. The other thing we did is we took all of our internal comms and executive comms and put it under one pillar so that it was all aligned so we could make a big push to IBMers on a regular basis. We try and be really transparent with our IBMers, have a regular engagement with them. The CEO does office hours once a month. We just had it this morning. And you know, the other thing I'd say about this is I do office hours with my team on a monthly basis, or a town hall. I do an AMA with people on a monthly basis. There's a lot of activity that we do as leaders across this company and managers across the company to ensure that IBMers are engaged. The other thing that it does for us, if you ask me, if people are excited about the work that the company's doing and the strategy behind the company, I feel that people will show up and be more excited to come to work. And by being more excited, they will do better work. They'll engage more thoughtfully, more fervently as we look across the work that they're doing, and we'll get better results for the company. Long-winded answer again, but hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. And the last question is about career advice. So Celeste.
Hi, my name is Celeste Zhou, and thank you, Mr. Adashek, for joining our class. My question is, if you could give yourself advice before you first start working after college, what would it be? Thank you.
Have fun. Don't take things too seriously, right? For a long time, when I was at Edelman, I think this was the best approach I think I had. I climbed my way up in Edelman, and I spent a lot of time with Richard Edelman, who's the CEO there. But I was very clear with Richard. I said to him, I'm going to have fun doing this job, and I'm going to do this job like I don't need it. And that allowed me to arguably have some more fun with it, allowed me to take some more risks that I might not have been able to take if I was very conservative and going, oh my God, I might lose my job if I do this. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I still practice it today. I try and do the job like I don't need it. Do I need the job? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Do I need this job? I've got 2 kids. I got a house. I got, bills to pay. A wonderful wife who, we're in this together, but I need this job. But if I take an approach of I don't need the job, I think it gives me, I don't do things that are reckless, but it enables me to take some more risk and to have more fun with it. And that would be the advice I would have given myself before I started.
Super, thanks very much. Michael, I think we're tight on the time, right?
Yeah, I think we are a bit tight on time. So, and it sounds, Jonathan, somehow magically you answered lots of questions that people had. So as I was polling people, they said, oh no, he just answered my question. So I think we managed to achieve some magic synergy there, Jonathan. So that was excellent. I think, George, if you want, we're close on time, and we should probably draw it to a close. I cannot think of better, but at some senses more mischievous advice than what Jonathan just left you with, which is, and maybe it's a more natural thing for a younger generation to think of their world not so centered around work as we did, perhaps when we started out in our careers, which is of course an exciting thing to see people engaging more broadly with the world around them and not focus all of their energies on just their job. So anyway, if you'll allow me, George, I want to thank Jonathan for sharing his perspectives and kind of quite a broad perspective, or drawing on a very broad set of experiences, which is always wonderful. And I think both some very human and sort of pragmatic advice as well. So it's been really enjoyable to have you in the classroom. And I want to thank George and his class as ever. And the fact that we were able to get some students from outside of NYU, from some high schools and other universities to listen in on this series with IBM, I know has been very, very instructive for all of us. So, you know, without further ado on my part, at least, sometimes George has a little video or closing drum roll, but without any additional on my part, I definitely want to thank you and all your colleagues for joining us this semester.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll do this.
Can I, oh, sorry, go ahead, George.
Let's go ahead and, yeah. Oh, as we do in Japan.
Thank you.
I think
I just, what I wanted to say, just on the fun thing, I'll say, I was interviewing with a CEO of a major gaming company one day, and the one thing that stuck out of a 2.5-hour conversation was, my company's built around fun. I want people here who are going to go have fun. So, you know, that's the one thing that stuck out for me, and that has stuck with me ever since. So go have fun when you do work. But the other thing I'd say, just as I wrap, is please feel free to reach out, hit me on LinkedIn. You can, you know, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to be a resource as people need it. But thanks for having me.
Super. Thanks very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
thank you all. Thank you.